So you have Matt Dobbs doing PR for Biden on foreign policy, and you have AOC, who instead of raising awareness about the fact that the border industrial complex is at record funding, Biden had funded ICE in the border industrial complex more than Donald Trump. NATO left. Can you please repeat after me? I said Joe Biden had funded ICE in the border industrial complex more than Donald Trump. Now, AOC, who did photoshops at the border crying under Joe Biden, under Donald Trump, now she don't give a shit about that. Now she don't give a shit. Could not care. Instead, she's gonna go on Rachel Maddow, prime time. Rachel Maddow is the Tucker Carlson of the liberal news outlet. She's the only one who have numbers who come close. She doesn't beat Tucker, but she gets like millions of views. Everyone else is dead underwater. She's the only one who can have a podcast, who can do her own shit and still have an audience. She's the superstar of liberal propaganda. So AOC, come on there. This is your prime time, AOC. You say this as well. I love that you say this as well. This is your prime time. This is Rachel Maddow. Are you with us or are you against us? They're death for us. You want to see what AOC did? Look at this. This is after the State of the Union. RBN, we did a live reaction to the State of the Union, and we explained for about 2 hours everything that went wrong, and I could have went deeper. We could have went over. I could go over a fine. I can go over that speech and tell you everything he lied about. We did most of during that stream. Look at AOC on MSNBC, and let's see what she had to choose to focus on. It's only 6 minutes. That's another reason I want to cover. Not a long segment, but it's very, very telling.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez standing by for us. I'm sorry about the delay getting to you, Congresswoman. We had this other thing happen. But thank you very much for being with us.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Our take from our studio view of the president's speech tonight was that it was unusually interactive. Lawrence O'Donnell used the word combative, described it as the most combative State of the Union speech that he'd ever seen. That was our impression from here. What was your impression in the room, and what did you make of the president's remarks?
Absolutely. I may not have served as many terms or have as much experience as other members, but this is my, fourth or fifth now, and I have never seen a State of the Union that was so disrupted by.
So, with all the problems that we have going on right now, CJ, millions homeless. You have 40% of Americans that is opting not to get health care because they can't afford it. And you want to know what AOC's priority is right now? People was mean to the president. You guys see this shit? You guys see how the professional managerial class care more about civility politics than anything else? That was mean to the president. That is AOC's message that she's sending on Rachel Maddow, one of the few people who actually get views on MSNBC. Unbelievable.
Clown shit.
Members of either party, even under President Donald Trump, we saw nowhere near the level of jeering, interruption, etc., that we saw by some of, I want to say the extreme elements of the Republican Party, but they are now being embraced and uplifted as the center of the Republican Party.
So you just acknowledged that they did something that you was not able to do, AOC. CJ, you hear what you just said? You guys will hear it again. Let me play that part again. I want you guys to acknowledge that AOC, you know that you're a failure. You was the left flank of the Democratic Party, and now you're politically homeless. You have no power. You are isolated. And Ilhan Omar just stripped over committees. Look what you said here.
We saw nowhere near the level of jeering, interruption, etc., that we saw by some of, I want to say the extreme elements of the Republican Party, but they are now being embraced and uplifted as the center of the Republican Party.
Now, why do you think that is, AOC? You have the far right, people who should be demonized. People like the Squad. What you see from the Lauren Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Greene faction of the Republican Party is the exact same with the Squad, where the media trashes them, they're considered as outliers, but they rally and harness the pure power of their support. So Marjorie Taylor Greene, despite the fact that New York Times hater, Washington Post hater, established Republicans hater, she was the #1 fundraiser in Congress. You guys understand that? Because people like AOC and Democrats propped her up. So despite the establishment hating them, She said, we're going to harness our people power. We're going to fundraise a ton of money. We're going to get people on our side. And we're going to force political power on the establishment. We don't give a fuck what they say. And look at what it got them. Marjorie Taylor Greene on high-level committees. The right-wing faction stronger than ever. Your strategy of being nice to the establishment got you where? You guys see how the NATO left, the boutique left, have no ability to critically think or learn. They're going to continue doing the same strategy, and they're going to be, oh my God, why is the far right so strong? Why they're weak? Because they're being nice to King Jeffries.
That last one. But Nick, to your point, and to point out a couple of other things,
go ahead.
If you notice in this interview, AOC seems different. It's just a different vibe. It's like she understands she's on a big stage, she understands that, look, I have now fully embraced my role as the left representative to go on corporate media, but I understand I have to always be delivering a great message. And what was the first thing she has to get in? The first thing she has to get in is that you guys did not treat the president right. And that's a big thing. Civility politics is a big thing in this red-blue game. And you notice how Democrats lean heavily on that, because to them it's morality. It's about living above the fray. Now I'm gonna bring your thing down. You can put it right back up. I just want to show you this headline. The same thing in Humanist Report. Look what his headline. He's pointing out how the GOP was so mean to Biden.
Oh, you gotta be fucking kidding me.
The same thing. When you said that, I was like, I'm going to set him up for this Humanist Report. Yes, look at the graphic, says trashy and downright embarrassing. And then the title is The GOP's Most Trashiest Moments from Biden's State of the Union.
Have you guys seen UK Parliament? When you saw the State of the Union, it's every single fucking day in the UK Parliament. Meanwhile, these pussies are like, oh my God, they are so mean. Where is their decorum? Are you kidding me?
Yes. Now, let's just say if this was Bernie people heckling him, would they be saying that? Would they be kind of leaning on civility politics? But this is the issue, Nick. With the professional sort of managerial class, if they're willing, you see how they're willing to use a ruling class tactic, because they're aspiring to be part of the ruling class. The petty bourgeoisie uses a lot of the ruling class tactics, and this is one of them. Civility politics. Look at what you guys are doing, and that makes us different.
Yep.
Because we're civil and you're not, you Trump supporters. Go ahead, Nick. Go ahead.
I'm gonna go back to the video, because there's a lot of breakdown, literally just 1 minute in, but it gets much worse. I don't know exactly how far you got to it, but I don't know how far you got to
probably about halfway. Maybe.
But it gets so much worse. So much worse. We literally just getting warmed up. And like you said, she's different because she knows this is her prime time audition. She already getting likes and retweets from people like Dave Weissman, Lincoln Project. People love her now. So after the State of the Union, which is one of the biggest political events of the electoral year, right? She's sent on Rachel Maddow. So this is a giant performance. That's why she got to make sure shit is tight. That's why you don't see normal. You got to make sure you make sure you're not playing around here. To be honest, the same thing what happens whenever I go on like George Galloway, whenever I go on the hill. I'll be honest with you guys. You guys know
that's true.
I talk that's true. I try to be calmer when I'm on the hill. I'm honest with you guys. I go on these platforms. I'm like, all right, I got a strategy. Can't scare people. So I have the same radical message, but I talk slower. I try to be more welcoming to people. It's a different strategy for a different audience. That is what AOC is doing on Maddow, because she want to be accepted by them. Isn't that what does that say? But let's continue the video.
And it's really shocking. Even the things that the overall Republican Party refused to stand for, paying public school teachers, public health policy, basic education policy, raising the wage for some of our.
Look at how vague she's being. Why are you not saying Medicare for all? Ending homelessness. You see, she's he working on stuff like healthcare policy, whatever the fuck that means. You guys see this shit?
This is called giving cover. It's called giving cover to the Democratic Party, because if she says Medicare for all, they're not for it. That's not giving cover. But if you just vaguely say healthcare, blah, 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 now you can include the Obamacare. Now you can include whatever Democrats they can co-opt it. You can't make it. You got to leave it co-optable. You get what I'm saying? Your language, you got to leave it co-optable. And that's what she's been training. All the way from her hair to her makeup to her outfit. It's not the same. Go on her Twitter and look at the shit she posted of herself. She don't look like this.
Yep.
She understands what she's doing here. And she fully accepts this role. And it was also proven on that committee. If you remember the clip, I know you've seen the clip when she was on the committee and she was talking about the Twitter files and Hunter Biden, completely defending that. That is completely ridiculous that she's defending that. But that's because she's fully accept her role. Go ahead, Nick.
And the Marianne Williamson left, the people who still apologize. Like, Marianne Williamson still apologizing for Bernie and AOC, and she think I'm going to let her get away with that shit. And they want to pretend that we don't see this. They want to pretend that everyone don't see AOC and Bernie Sanders being unapologetic fucking simps for the establishment now. And then she look at me like I'm crazy when I bring up obvious criticism of Bernie. Well, that's just your opinion. That's your opinion. You don't vote for me. They want to pretend that this shit's not happening. Let's continue, because, guys, it literally get way worse. Like, she's warming up. The first minute when she was attacking Republicans, she's getting her feet wet. Then she really go into PR overdrive mode, and I could not believe this. That's why I was like, bro, I got to do this breakdown with Nick and CJ. This is unbelievable. Watch this.
And for paying public school teachers, public health policy, basic education policy.
What does that mean?
Raising the wage for some of our lowest paid workers in the United States.
Do that.
This should be really basic stuff, sky is blue kind of stuff. And the Republican Party, I think, really showed the country who they are tonight, that they have been taken over, and that this isn't some right wing. This is the ethos of the modern Republican Party.
They've been taken over compared to what? The George W. Bush Republicans? Get the fuck out of here with that. That's literally apologia for the Karl Rove era. There's no difference. In fact, George W. Bush Jr. was more efficient than Trump. Like, Dick Cheney was more efficient than Mike Pompeo and these people, right? But anyway, I'll continue the video. I hate that talking point so much, because you're not being tough on Republicans when you say that. You're apologizing for the former GOP. They got taken over. Get the fuck out of here.
We did see the president focus on economic issues and sort of bread and butter issues and working families, middle-class families, practical issues throughout almost the duration of his speech. He talked a little bit about Ukraine. He talked a little bit about the Roe versus Wade decision for a little bit. He spent considerable time on police violence and trying to get some sort of police reform. But we really saw him talk about nuts and bolts stuff, kitchen table stuff, wages, dignity of work, jobs, healthcare costs, access to healthcare. I have to imagine that in your district, given its profound diversity, both ethnic and economic diversity, that has to be I'm guessing that has to be welcome, just in terms of that.
Can you pause it before she answers?
Yeah.
So this is pretty disgusting.
Yeah.
But this illustrates how the media and politicians, and in particular her specifically, the media is using the most or the second most leftist radical in elected person in public view to whitewash this bullshit as virtue signaling for the Biden administration. Look, the leftist is saying all this stuff about the speech. That's what she's being used as, and she knows she's being used as that, and that's pretty disgusting. Go ahead, Nick.
That's so disgusting. Like, that's such a good point, CJ. Why did they bring on a random Democrat from Montana or some shit? Or they bring AOC on? She's like, oh my god, you are the advocate of the left. You're the district diverse. They will love Biden's agenda, won't they? And think about the question: how is this not state TV? How do people think that Russia and China got worse media than we do? This question right here is why I say the United States is the most propagandized country in the world. You have the media, which is supposed to be oppositional to power. She brings power on to be like, hey, can you agree that Biden is great? Hey, you got a diverse district. You are the lefty representative. Can you please help us manufacture consent for Biden? The United States is the most propagandized country in the world. This is the worst example of state TV you could find. Let's go back to the question again, and we play AOC's answer, which is unbelievable. Unbelievable. Like, I know AOC is a sellout, but every time I see her do new sellout shit, I'm still shocked. Like, she be on that new sellout shit. I'm
like, on that new shit, son.
New shit. Like, even you guys see how I cover it. I'm still shocked when I see this stuff. Like, I'm gonna go back 10 seconds so you guys hear the question, and then let's listen to her answer a little bit and look how she unapologetically knows her role here.
Your district, given its profound diversity, both ethnic and economic diversity, that has to be I'm guessing that has to be welcome, just in terms of that being such a large focus of the president's remarks.
Yes, absolutely. You know, I do think that the forcefulness of some of the language that he used, calling out Big Pharma by name, really naming these caps that we have passed on the price of insulin, on out-of-pocket costs, it is powerful. And this is some of the most animating issues that touch the material reality of everyday Americans. I think he did a good job of that, but also not letting off corporate greed, as, you know, he called.
When we did our RBN Live, we explained how Big Pharma make record profits under Biden, and we were calling him out for his lies. But AOC, what she does in manufacture consent and tell you that he is telling you the truth. This is disgusting.
Called out the profit margins of big oil. I mean, I think that it was definitely impactful, and it was surprising, I think, even to some of us, compared to some of his past State of the Unions.
Biden is responsible for big oil profits. I just covered this. How big oil raking in massive profits because of Biden's policies. This is crazy. I want to continue though.
Something I just referenced a moment ago. But
I think this is the next part right here. We see AOC go full Biden defense. This next part is the worst part though. The first two questions expose AOC's role and how unapologetic she is at doing that role. The next part shows how low she is willing to sink. Just listen to this. I think it literally speaks for itself. It's so.
Let me just ask you in detail about what you thought about the president's lengthy and I thought quite empathetic remarks about police violence. He talked about how members of law enforcement are risking their lives when they put on the shield, and that they deserve to come home just like the communities they protect. But community members deserve to come home too, and there have been too many people killed, and it's not getting better fast enough.
Can you pause that? It is so terrible, the framing how she just said, is that she described it as, let's talk about the police reform he's taking. And the first thing she talks about police reform is how he talks about police need to come home.
Yes.
And you notice is police need to come home and everybody else too, when it should be the other way around. The two person is secondary. You see what I'm saying? If you say two, that's for the secondary person. That she's saying the police reform and Tyre Nichols' death that prompted all of this, police reform, and then you say police need to come home because they're risking their lives. Are we talking about a police that died? Are we talking about a person that died? This is pretty disgusting.
Yeah, this is pretty
disgusting right here.
This is exactly why I put Rachel Maddow up there with Tucker Carlson and Joe Scarborough. I told you, this is the worst part of the whole interview. Anything else is just funny bad. Like, anything else is funny bad. This is like anger-inducing bad. Especially AOC's answer, which we didn't even get to yet. Because we explained earlier why Biden disrespects the Black community more than Republicans do. Because you guys are funding the police more, and you guys written the policies that killed Tyre Nichols. And then you guys use his death and suffering and put his parents out there as a political prop to manufacture political support for a bill that funds his killers more. Keep that in context as you watch this disgusting segment here. So I'll go back just a little bit so you hear this propaganda question and listen to what, instead of explaining that, listen to how AOC, anyway, I don't want to spoil it.
Listen. Are risking their lives when they put on the shield, and that they deserve to come home just like the communities they protect. But community members deserve to come home too, and there have been too many people killed, and it's not getting better fast enough. And he spent a lot of time engaging with Tyre Nichols' parents who were there in the gallery watching. And we know so many other family members of people who've been killed by police were there tonight in the room to pay witness. What do you make of the president's remarks and about what he's substantively proposing?
You know, I was surprised by the president's remarks and his focus on reform, focus on justice, and really his focus on centering the families that have been so deeply impacted by police violence and police brutality, and really centering this discussion around reform. If you contrast that with his speech just a year ago, where, you know, this two-dimensional frame of fund or defund, and it was, we're going to fund the police. This is a very different conversation, and one that advocates have been asking for a long time. See what is happening on the ground. See and acknowledge the reality that our communities are experiencing, and that this is a problem that has gone unaddressed for far too long. And so for him to stand up there, to name, you know, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, which...
Bruh.
That's what she did.
Bruh.
She just did a diatribe of stuff that he had nothing to do with Joe Biden and connected it and tried to make it seem like that's the takeaway from what Biden. Are y'all motherfucking serious? These motherfuckers gonna get us killed, Nick.
This is look at what she just did. She quoted the George Floyd policing bill. Listen to this. She quoted it.
That our communities are experiencing, and that this is a problem that has gone unaddressed for far too long. And so for him to stand up there, to name, you know, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, which
gives the police more money. Joe Biden took COVID relief money and gave it to the police, over 50% of it. And so AOC starts out by saying, oh, well, Biden, they should be caught up on this concept of funding or defunding the police. I'm glad he's over that. No, he's not. He's literally promoting a bill that funds the police more. This is disgusting propaganda. This is why we say they're worse than Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin and the neoliberals couldn't pull this shit off, CJ. They couldn't pull this shit off. This is unbelievable. Joe Biden, who is writing the policy, who created the presidential complex, AOC is coming up here and using Tyre Nichols' parents grieving as a shield to prop up the Biden administration and put favor on the George Floyd Policing Act, which does the same thing you say that Democrats shouldn't do. Fund the police more, which she knows. And this is how you know, this next part, how you know she knows the propaganda is bad. Like, their propaganda is eating at her soul somewhere, if there's anything in there. Because look at the part where she kind of catches herself, like, holy shit, I can't believe I just said that. Listen to this.
You know, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, which in and of itself, advocates already believe that it doesn't really go far enough to address.
So why are you propping it up? You guys see that? That's her inner conflict right there. You want to say it again? That's her inner conflict.
In and of itself, advocates already believe that it doesn't really go far enough to address the core underlying issues. But
details, AOC. So it doesn't go far enough. Why? Because it funds the police more. It doesn't do anything to prevent the problem that we were trying to solve. But she can't say that, because if she says that, it is debunks everything she said previously. Do you guys see this unbelievable shit? This is the highest level of propaganda out there right now. This is some new shit, son. This is the new propaganda shit that only AOC, Bernie, and the squad can pull off. Joe Manchin can't pull this shit off. We only got a little bit left. Let's see how we can let it finish, because I think I got most of my primary critique. I'll let play.
Still, for him to name this legislation, it's a long way from just a year ago where it was really just about how much more money can we pile into these local departments.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Issue. I also think it's an acknowledgement of the fact that this isn't really connected to funding much at all in terms of how we actually lower these instances of horrific violence in communities. And so I thought it was encouraging. I know myself and some other members were kind of waiting for the shoe to drop. We felt like there was kind of this wind up and that there was going to be a but. And I think we were very relieved and surprised that there was no but, that there was just an acknowledgement that this is actually a problem. And
bro, this is nothing but PR for Biden.
Shit. So they are trying to talk the population, and this is what they do. She's basically talking the population into saying nothing tangibly is going to happen, but the fact that he didn't even say fund the police, we're coming a far way, baby. It's a constant trying to convince people that nothing happening is something happening. That's what we're doing, and that's the constant selling of incrementalism. But this is pretty disgusting because she delivers a word salad of perfection. This is like some high-class word salad here because you think it makes sense until you repeat it and say, let me try to derive what she's trying to tell me, and you cannot understand what she's trying to tell you about the Joe Biden administration. Go ahead.
And the constant contradictions, which is, I'm glad we're not talking about funding more, but she brings up a policy that funds the police more, ignoring the massive part that Biden is funding the police more, took COVID money to fund the police more. But then she's trying to pretend that Biden is a good guy on this issue. You gotta see why she's so dangerous. You gotta see why RBN spends so much time calling out these people. AOC should be our number one focus. Who's doing propaganda better than this? They got young people that actually believes it. And people say RBN is toxic. RBN always
was talking about them.
Oh my God, why RBN always calling out AOC? You guys see this shit? This is why. No one is doing more toxic propaganda against the working class than AOC and Bernie Sanders right now.
Like, what do they expect us to sit back and just let this happen? Let people say
they're mad that RBN exists. They're mad that we exist because we're calling out this BS. If RBN wasn't here, you still have left people like Marianne Wilson.
And David Sirota.
If it wasn't for us. That's why we're here to explain to you guys why we have the criticism, why AOC is such a threat. This what she just did there is more anti-black than anything I've seen any politician done this year. Like,
but I would say, even because you're naming some of the people, if RBN wasn't here, I would say even the squad, because before RBN, the people criticizing the squad was Jimmy. Oh, that's a white racist right winger. Now we're on the block. We're like, what do you got to say? We're so
now that we're Jimmy Dorites, ignoring literally.
Ignoring
people like Lee Cam, Maury Kimberly, ignoring all
who's been on the show more than anybody, Margaret Kimberly.
We had Danny Haifong on, Gerald Horn on. We had Savvy talked to Chris Hedges. We had Dr. Cornel West on. Like, it's literally endless. But people are like, oh, Jimmy Dorite, because they want to. They were like, oh, Jimmy is bad guy. He criticized AOC and Bernie, so they're not bad. So then we come out, we're like, no, fuck that bullshit. Fuck that bullshit. This is what the workers feel like. This is what the workers feel like, and we debunk their entire nonsense, which is why people like Matt does block us. They can't even give us a hearing.
I can't believe that.
They can't even give us a hearing. My last thought on the topic is a comment on something that you pointed out to kind of combine our breakdowns. Because I didn't watch the whole segment. I watched a little bit, as much as I could. But you brought up how AOC is Nancy Pelosi, and I love that point. I want to include that in this segment as well, because my good friend Thea, she called this out a long time ago. She's like, dude, I'm telling you, AOC about to be the next Nancy Pelosi. Because if you look at the old footage, Nancy Pelosi was speaking out for single-payer health care. Yeah. And Nancy Pelosi was considered a progressive because Nancy Pelosi was showing up at gay pride parades. And remember, this was in the 1980s. In the 1980s, America was deeply homophobic. So think about this.
Courtesy, Dr. Fauci contributed to that shit.
Yeah. Great point. Yeah, great point.
Yeah.
CJ. So think about it in terms of American public perception at that time. You had a young Nancy Pelosi who stood up for gay rights when that was deeply unpopular. She was talking about single-payer health care in the middle of a Reagan economics. So she was considered a progressive, even though she wouldn't be considered a social democrat now. You got to consider the times, right?
Right.
With her position, she was considered literally like an AOC kind of politician.
Right.
And then that is so crazy to say now because we see the insane transformation. Look at AOC now. Compare to AOC. That 5 years later, that compared to her Jimmy Dore interview. Compare AOC interview with Glenn Greenwald compared to her appearance with Rachel Maddow. Two completely different people. So, Matt, and your point you made, which is great, imagine what it's going to look like in 15 years. Nigga, we just seen, it's been 5 years. Guys, she got elected in 2018. Nigga, she sold out in record time. Imagine 15 years. Imagine.
And we have to remember the word liberal, because when we're talking about in this context, you might be thinking liberal and progressive, yeah, they're still different. Understand the word liberal in the 80s means what the word progressive means today.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's the same meaning. So even though today we're thinking liberal is a different sort of slightly to the left of progressive, but if you're talking liberal at the time, when she was called a liberal, is what we would consider a progressive today. Just think about Medicare for all now is considered a progressive issue. Think about when she was saying it 40 years ago. That was considered that. Gay pride, you think everybody's for gay pride now.
Yeah.
Wasn't that way back then. Not even for Democrats. Not even for the majority of Democrats.
Too.
Go ahead.
It was considered politically risky as well. It was like, oh my God. It's like when AOC did her sit-in on it and Pelosi offers, like it was an early risky gambit. And that paid off for her, right? So when people bring up the fact that Nancy Pelosi used to be progressive, the reaction, especially for younger people who don't know history, like, whoa, what? I still remember when I first saw the Nancy Pelosi single-payer healthcare speech, like maybe a few years ago. I was like, bro, what? I was like, a what moment? Like, holy shit, what? So, guys, in 20 years from now, when I think they call it Gen A, I don't know the official name for the generation after Gen Z. So Gen A or whatever gonna be coming up in the next 20 years, and then people gonna be like, "You remember when AOC used to be a progressive?" And then they're gonna be like, "Bro, no way." Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez,
like, she was a progressive?
You mean the warmonger Speaker of the House? No way. And then we show footage for no further. Look at this interview that she did on Glenn Greenwald, and then they can look at that interview like a historic relic. Like, oh my God, you guys see what Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, the neoliberal sellout, what she used to say? It's going to be the same thing, guys.
That's exactly what's going to happen.